So first I will invoke the prayers of the prayer to the Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is the chapter 1, text number 13. And it is text number 32 and 33. Tatra Sañjaya Masinam Paprachodvignamanasa Gavagane Kvasnastato Vedeho Kinasche Netraya. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, full of anxiety, turned to Sañjaya, who was sitting there, and said, "O Sañjaya, where is our uncle, who is old and blind?" Ambacha hataputtarta pittura kvagata surit apimayakta prage hatabandhu saparyaya asangsangana sangalam gangayam dukito patat. Translation: Where is my well-wisher, Uncle Vidura, and Mother Gandhari, who is very afflicted due to all her sons' demise? My uncle Dhritarashtra was also very mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I am very ungrateful. Did he therefore take my offences very seriously, and along with his wife, drown himself in the Ganga? Purport: The Pandavas, especially Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira and Arjuna, anticipated the after effects of the battle of Kurukshetra, and therefore Arjuna declined to execute the fighting. The fight was executed by the will of the Lord, but the effects of family aggrievement, as they had thought of it before, had come to be true. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was always conscious of the great plight of his uncle Dhritarashtra and aunt Gandhari, and therefore he took all possible care of them in their old age and aggrieved conditions. When therefore he could not find his uncle and aunt in the palace, naturally his doubts arose, and he conjectured that they had gone down to the water of the Ganga. He thought himself ungrateful, because when the Pandavas were fatherless, Mahārāja Dhritarashtra had given them all royal facilities to live, and in return he had killed all Dhritarashtra's sons in the battle of Kurukshetra. As a pious man, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira took into account all his unavoidable misdeeds, and he never thought of the misdeeds of his uncle and company. Dhritarashtra had suffered the effects of his own misdeeds by the will of the Lord, but Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was thinking only of his own unavoidable misdeeds. That is the nature of a good man and devotee of the Lord. A devotee never finds fault with others, but tries to find his own and thus rectify them as far as possible. Amagyana Tilamarandasya Kinanjana Shalakya Chakshul Militamdena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Svabadantikam Namo Vishtubadai Krishna Vastai Vasaleshimani Satsvasko Swami Tinamani Vishtubadai Krishna Vastai Vasaleshimani Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Shesha Shalnivadi Paschita Adishnari. So he was very, very aggrieved at this particular time. It's quite amazing, isn't it? I mean, he was in the palace, that like he'd been looking after his uncle, like most people would have probably thrown the uncle to the dogs and just got rid of him straight away because he was such a rascal, such a thorn in the side of Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira. Most kings would be in that kind of a mood. If you just have to take the example of the in the Taj Mahal, the person who made it, his son Aurangzeb got him and threw him in jail, tried to kill him and killed his brother, just so that he could have leadership or to have control over the crown. So that was generally the kind of activity that a king would involve in. If somebody double-crossed him, then that was it. He was finished. I remember that situation one time. It was in Saddam Hussein's Iraq. They had the members of parliament were all gathered together in the assembly hall, and Saddam Hussein was giving a speech, and then he kind of asked for any objections, and then a couple of people gave their point of view from the hall. Immediately Saddam called for the guards, got them, arrested them, and they were killed. So that's the kind of energy that can manifest when there is a great Kshatriya kind of, not a great Kshatriya, but when there's that kind of ruling kind of tendency is there, that people are, and then in more recent times we have the former president of America, who by all accounts was quite a dangerous character to the world. If anyone disagreed with him, they were removed, basically, and it was just kind of like the remnants of that type of rule. Although I don't get involved in politics as such, but that could be seen in a similar light. There was a kind of a heavy-handedness that goes on, and we see it in different rulerships around the world today, communist China or in Russia, among other many other places. You have that kind of that rule of law, by which the people in charge they exercise a very heavy rulership over the citizens. But you don't see that in Yudhiṣṭhira's case at all. He was a king of the highest order. He was in control of the whole world. The person who tried to kill him and his family throughout his whole life, he can only see the good in them. So this should be taken as an example for us, because the tendency for us is to blame everybody else, and especially if somebody has wronged us. It is a very, very, not easy thing to do, but it's very, you could even say natural thing to do, but it's by the force of our karma, it is the tendency for us is to get back, because that's the defending nature. You'll see that in animals, if somebody does them wrong, then they'll fight back. So if somebody does that to us, our tendency is to do that. But in Bhagavad Gita, that's not the case. In the 13th chapter, in the it's called Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness, the living entity doesn't actually think like that. What he says is that sorry, I'm taking so long to find this actually. That one who sees the super soul everywhere, in every living being, does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created from material nature, and sees that the self does not do anything, actually sees. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul, although situated in Brahman, does not mix with the body, though in that body. So he doesn't blame anybody. He just sees that the modes of material nature are acting. This is the highest state. The 5 elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activity and its interactions. So basically, the living entity doesn't get into that situation. He doesn't see that I'm sorry, I didn't find the exact quote I was looking for, but he doesn't feel that the other person is to blame for his particular actions. But he sees that it is only the modes of nature which are actually acting through those other people. So this is our Yudhiṣṭhira, this is his vision. He sees that friends and enemies is the same, the equal, the mediators, the benefactors, the enemies. He sees them all with an equal mind. So is that just a theoretical idea? No, it's not. It's something that we have to practice ourselves. It's a serious practice in this material world, because we're constantly being agitated in different ways by you could say even social media, or we may be agitated by someone who says something against us, or we have to deal with different government agencies or different businesses. I remember having to deal with British Telecom at one point, and it was the most frustrating thing you could imagine. You talk to somebody in another country, and they would keep on asking you the same questions over again after about 10 minutes, and then you tell them what's wrong, and they said okay, and then they wouldn't do anything about it until you got on to the next person. This could happen 5, 6, 7, 10 times. They were all trained like robots to actually ask these things, and you just want to tell somebody your problem. So it's not that Yudhiṣṭhira was just didn't do anything either. He tried everything to try to stop the battle of Kurukshetra going ahead, but eventually he took up arms and actually had to fight his enemies, as Arjuna did. And as a king, he had to act in a kingly way, and sometimes he had to punish. So it's not that they are not they're upholding dharma, basically. That's the real nature of a king like this. But still, you can see the soft-heartedness that even after Dhritarashtra tried to kill him in so many ways, trying to burn him, trying to kill his brothers, trying to destroy his family, his mother, still he was looking after him, and only saw that I've killed all his sons, he must be so upset, therefore I have to look after him, he's my uncle, and therefore he looked after me when I was young. So he has all this vision going on, but that wasn't the case. The king tried to kill him, and actually, as Prabhupada in the purports here says, that Dhritarashtra was getting the unavoidable karma due to him for having acted so impiously in the past, and because he had tried to kill all the Pandavas, so therefore all his sons were killed. Even Gandhari, she tried to curse Krishna. It's so many different things going on. But anyway, Krishna, and because of Vidura, Dhritarashtra was actually rescued. Yudhiṣṭhira looked after him for a while, but then his uncle Vidura came and actually rescued him and was able to speak strongly enough to him to allow him to actually leave the encumberment of the material energy. So I just thought it's interesting as well. I was just thinking this morning about the different roles. Chaturvarna mayashrishtam guna karma vibhagashaha. Krishna says that the 4 different types of qualities of material nature were created by me. The 4 varnas and the 4 ashrams. And I thought about it as that because, that means that they're actually still already here. They're already here in the world. And Prabhupada often talked about bringing in Varnashram. And then we could say, am I a Sudra? And someone would say, oh yes, I'm a Sudra. But also, well, why am I studying the Shastra? Sudras are not supposed to. We will see that these designations are there as a very clear guide what Krishna has created. But because of the of Kali Yuga's entanglements, it's not so clearly delineated for each one of us exactly what we are. We may have the tendencies of all 4 varnas in different ways, but in general there was a division like that. But we see that how confused it has become, and how the Prabhupada says Maya apritakyana ashuram bhavamat ashritam, the 4 types of people who actually don't surrender to Krishna, and one of them is the Maya apritakyana. You have the people whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and also who partake of the atheistic nature of demons. But especially those that their knowledge is stolen by illusion. We have in today's society, we have the scientists at the top of the order. We have people that are going to school at the moment, and they're all trying to compete to get the best prize, to get the best jobs, to get the best points, to get the best, And society is actually encouraging it, giving huge grants for people to go to college, to get trained up so that they can take on the higher echelons of society. The same in the business world. You have so many MBS or Master of Business or whatever. So many people doing these degrees so they can be good business people, so that for their country they can make lots more money, or then they become claimed by some company, and then they become their company's employee, and then the companies then go beyond nationalism, and then often find that companies born in a country, they destroy jobs or take jobs out of their own country and put it in another country because they want to save money. So all of these different entanglements are going on in the world. But generally, I thought that the scientists today, they're considered to be the Brahminical class, but their knowledge has been stolen by illusion. They think that they are in control, that they're controlling nature, and they don't think there's any God in control. They think that they are actually conducting nature, and we look at the huge people paying obeisances at the citadel of scientific knowledge. The whole world is going around based on science, and no one has the intelligence to actually stop and think about what's actually happening and what's actually going on. And they just create further and further and further entanglements in material nature, and things become more and more and more and more complicated. Everything becomes so complicated. They are aspiring to reach the heavenly planets. We can see that Brahma has been created with that way. He's got 4 heads. He's got heads in different dimensions, and he's the creator of the universe. So he actually knows the complexities of the world. But that's already been created by Krishna. But we have the living entities who instead try to make this world, this temporary world, the place whereby they actually expand their intelligence, and they think that that's all there is. So it's just like I just was noticing when I was chanting this morning, I just kind of stopped quite suddenly, and then I saw a little insect pop from one piece of grass to another. That's who I am. I am not any different than that insect. There's no difference. It's the same thing. I can't think that I'm the Lord of everything. And then I thought about how the living entity then sometimes thinks that he's the ruler of the country. He's the Lord. So all of these things that are there, this illusion that goes on in the living entity, and these are the people who are in control of the world, and who are in controlling the values in the world. But Krishna consciousness is meant to try to create, to rectify the imbalance in thought in the world. So that is the function of the devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement. We're meant to try to redress that imbalance of people in the temporary understanding of life, to give them a perspective whereby they can understand their spiritual nature, their spiritual dimension, and even number one, even to know that they're spiritual, but also for them then to act on the basis of their spiritual dimension, and then to attain the ultimate goal of life, which is love of Godhead, and therefore there will be sagunan samatititan brahma bhuya kalpate. They're beyond the modes of nature, so that their activities here are done in connection with Krishna, in connection with being a servant of Krishna, and therefore it becomes beyond the modes of nature, which is what the other categories of living entities are embroiled in, which is the modes of nature. And they're only creating within the modes of nature, creating further entanglement within these modes. We have to be careful not to get involved with this madness. We don't need too much proof either how mad it is, because we only have to examine our own body, our own bodily aches as we get older and older. That's why older sometimes means wiser as well, because we realize our limitations of what we can actually do, whether it's an extra pain in the arm, a pain in the leg, a pain in the head. These are all signs of our mortality. and our ability to function in this world. You even get those some people who want to live in their next life. And actually the whole Karma Kanda section of the Vedas is about that. But what is it to do? It's so that we can enjoy in the next life. But that's not who we are. The Krishna consciousness movement gives us the understanding of who we actually are, who the actual soul is, which is Jivera Svarupahai Krishnera Nityadas. We're actually a servant of the servant of Krishna. We're a tiny, tiny living entity whose goal or whose duty is to love God. And we've been created by God so that we can have enjoyment. There's this great example that was given by Vaisheshika Prabhu recently when Prabhupada was traveling. I think it was in, I don't know which park it was in, but we all know that Prabhupada used to enjoy the walks in the park, and the devotees used to love going with them. So a devotee was asking about why does Krishna create us, and Prabhupada says, well, it's for his enjoyment, because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. So he enjoyed just so much by oneself, but he's created the living entities also for his enjoyment, and he has created a loving relationship with these living entities, which is us. And then just at the end of the park, Prabhupada was just finishing and getting back into the car, and all the devotees were all around, and they were all very, very inspired, very, very happy. And he said, just see, just all together, there's so much enjoyment. This enjoyment is so much good because we're all talking with each other, and it's giving us blissful energy. So this is Krishna. So we're created like in that way as well, is for Krishna's enjoyment. So let's get into it. Let's get at it. Let's enjoy with Krishna, Let's be enjoyed by Krishna, and therefore enjoy with Krishna. Because that is our function. And he's the creator of everything. Forget about these scientists trying to take credit for so much. Forget about all these kind of materialists trying to say that they're looking after the world situation. Krishna is in control of all of this. And our relationship with Krishna is the way in which we can get stuck into this. And Krishna's devotee, like Srila Prabhupada or Srila Prabhupada's disciples, and so many other great devotees in the line of Krishna consciousness and in other spiritual systems. Let's try to create, or let's try to redress this imbalance which is there in the world by recognizing our situation in relation to Krishna, and by developing our relationship with Krishna, in love with Krishna, which is, Abhideya, Sambandha, which is the theory of the relationship with Krishna. Abhideya is that we get involved in that whole situation. And then Prayojana is where we develop actual love of God. These are the stages of spiritual life. And so all of us it's incumbent upon us to actually to develop that relationship, because then we know that Krishna is happy. And if Krishna is happy, then everybody is happy. So we have to re-establish the supremacy of Krishna, supremacy of God. I was listening to it was a famous writer in the Sunday Independent. He has his or a Saturday Independent, one of them anyway, and he was talking about how he, in a sense, he's not able to believe in any afterlife. He just doesn't think that there's any there, or there's any kind of spiritual essence. As much as he tries, he just can't experience it. In fact, just to get a little taste of it, sometimes he just watches horror movies. That's his only way in which he can get some little inkling of it. But he's dull. He's dead to the world to think that there's anything else which is spiritual. But these are the social commentators. These are the people that other people listen to, and they gradually spread the poison that there is no spiritual world. Or they offer some as if they're some great intellectual who says, well, I can't do it, it's just not there. It's just, some people believe it, but it's just, I don't believe it. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen for me. They're an apologist. They even don't want to do it. They even put themselves in that position. They're so intelligent that they don't want to say that there's not a God, but it's just that they see no evidence of it. So this is the atmosphere in which we plunge ourselves into, and we're trying to operate within. So those things I wanted to also just to comment a little bit about That's what I said about the various modes of nature, how the Chaturvarnamaya, and these are created by Krishna. So we should just work with the tendency that we have, and we should actually just work to our limit. As I was talking with my son yesterday about, getting outside our comfort zone. It's important that we try to push. We can try to push. Not that we're always scatterbrained. We should be always trying to also get solidity in our thoughts and our thinking, but sometimes we can just not. We can get involved with a miserable ease, and we don't therefore push ourselves to go beyond our the limits that we put on ourselves, or the limits that are put upon us by our karma. But we should try to extend ourselves as much as we can, because by going to the edge, then Krishna will see that's it's lolium. How much do we want Krishna? That is really one of the questions, and we're cursed a little bit. But I'm cursed by my inveterate laziness and not to go beyond. I just want to lie down, take it easy, don't have to worry about it. It'll all be fine. Nature. So, but I need to go beyond that, and it's when I'm spiritually awakened, I can actually do that more. Whether it's by getting up early, by chanting in the rounds, by hearing from the literatures. I just thought I would mention a couple of points. One is about about hearing, because the hearing and chanting are like our bread and butter. This is our life source. We will not be Krishna conscious if we don't read and chant. We cannot do it because of the dint of the extent of our entanglement in nature, because of our karma, because of the latent energy. I just can't remember the name of that word. It's our velocity of which our karma is working through us. We will just think we're matter, and we think that we're the body, and we think that we're the mind, and we won't get any understanding of that we're not those things, but that there is Krishna is there, and Krishna is the most powerful. And we in other words, we constantly have to associate with this literature in order for us to stay aloof. That's why Prabhupada gave us these books. That's why he's there. He's with us. He's gave us these books just to stay outside and beyond the entanglements of the material world. And we have to consult them. We have to be with them. And we have to chant with them as well. We have to chant this Hare Krishna mantra. And we have to learn how to chant offenselessly. That will protect us. Offenseless chanting is what will protect us from the entanglements in matter. So these just one point about about hearing, how hearing is so important. It's in the Adi Lila number 7. One can overcome all misconceptions and entanglement in the material world by practicing Bhakti Yoga. And therefore Vyasadeva, acting on the instruction of Sri Narada, has very kindly introduced Srimad-Bhagavatam to relieve the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master instructed him, therefore, that one must read Srimad-Bhagavatam regularly and with scrutiny to gradually become attached to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Because otherwise, we're just going to say the name, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And it's just words. It's only going to be words. It's better than not chanting the word name, but we will not be chanting the name unless we know what we're doing when we're chanting the name. And because it's the same one over and over and over and over. It's the same words. We will be just mouthing the words, and our minds will be going into, what did I do today? What am I doing tomorrow? What am I going to do next week? What has this person said to me? What is that other person? The mind will be concentrating on that. Will be just while the words are going on. So unless we're reading, we won't get the energy to think of how to chant the holy name without offense, and as a servant of Krishna. So both of these things are so closely intertwined. We cannot do without them. If we haven't got a great appetite for just actually hearing, then we should hear from others. We should put on tapes. Despite all the negativity of the material science, there's this huge positivity in that we can hear from the great souls, and more so we can discuss let's discuss with each other these topics, because that's actually being even more important, it said in one point in the Bhagavatam, than actually reading, is by discussing. Obviously discussing in relation to reading, though, of course. It's not one without the other again. It's both. So so that's the little message that comes out today, is that is to remain free from the entanglements of the material world by hearing and hearing and hearing and chanting and chanting and chanting. Okay, that's it for this morning. Thank you very much for listening. Hare Krishna.